What's up? Greetings from Houston, Texas. Mike coming at you from AT Astro, Error of Truth, Aspect and Predictive Astrology. And in today's phenomenal astrological segment, we're going to be covering a very often discussed topic, the nodal axis, and what it means, how to interpret it, and its implication not only in your daily life, but in your path to karmic growth and realizing the full potential of your natal chart. So, why does it even really matter? Well, the nodal axis is, in fact, actually, fuck that. Why does astrology even matter to begin with? When you draw up your natal chart, you go to astro.com, you put your birth information in, you get the little circle with the signs and the planetary placements and the aspects and the houses and yada, yada, yada. What you're looking at a picture of your predispositions and how you decided to survive in this world right after you popped out of your mother. And you can see so many things about an individual, from their likes, their dislikes, their challenges that they'll have to overcome in order to, become the person they need to be, and then the strengths that they have to help get them there. But if you really do go deeper into it, it can show you ties to your past. It can show you ties to who you were before you are who you are. It can show you where you need to go to realize your full potential. What the nodal axis is, it's keep visuals. It's these two points, these two symbols that you'll see on the natal chart. So this is the north node and this is the south node, and they both appear on the natal chart exactly 180 degrees from each other. So the circle has 360 degrees. The north node will be on one side and the south node will be in another. It's basically, it cuts through your natal chart like a razor. The south node is where you're coming from. The north node is where you're going, or where you need to go, because a lot of people don't get there. And to elaborate on that more, the south node is your ties to your past. It's who you were before you are who you are now. And not like the MC, the IC, the cusp of the fourth house. That's like your upbringing and your childhood. This is before your childhood. This is your karma. Everybody carries psychic baggage from their previous life or their previous incarnation. In fact, almost all religions have some sort of concept of this. Catholicism, they talk about the concept of original sin. The Hindus, they believe in reincarnation, and it's a pretty universal concept. You have to atone for all past mistakes and all past experiences. And if you don't pay for it in this lifetime, you're going to carry it over into the next. And you're going to keep repeating that process and keep repeating these circumstances until you move past it and move on to the next phase of life. So the south node is where you're coming from, what you did in a past life to put you in the position you're in now, your strengths from your past life, and the north node is where you need to go to move past the karma and then on to the next phase of existence. Unfortunately, most people won't reach their north node soul mission. It really does depend on the chart. When you look at the axis being made from one end of the chart to the other, you'll look at where the other planets are at in the chart. The sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Pluto, etc. And depending on the aspects they make to either end of the axis, they show you what parts of your personality are tied into the past and what part of your personalities are trying to assist you to help propel you into the next phase. It's really important to look at. It's the most karmic point on the chart. And it is one of the most potent areas to study of the natal chart, because it can really help guide you on the most appropriate and necessary, because there is no other path other than the north-south node axis, but the only path you need to take to actually fulfill your destiny. And some people are blessed enough to have, let's say you look at the chart and you see the north node and there's a bunch of planets packed up on top of it, a lot of conjunctions. Like mine, actually, for instance. I have a lot of planets conjunct the North Node in the 8th house, unfortunately. And they get pulled towards their karmic destiny, kicking and screaming. Like, they're going to get there. There's so many parts of their personality that are trying to, at a subconscious level, break into that there's really no way they could stop it. In fact, a lot of people who are in that type of position, if it's, a intensive enough situation, they can actually die trying to reach that part of their, their path. Because the north-south node axis, it exists within all of our subconscious. It's actually, it's a psychic obsession. People are always going to want to move towards their north node. It's magnetic. In fact, whenever the north node or even the south, if the north node falls on one of the angles of the chart, on the cusp of the 1st house, the 4th house, the 7th house, or the 10th house, that in itself will draw people to them because it is such a magnetic energy. Also, the cusp of the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th house are parts of the chart that kind of interact with the world around them. So having, an important point like that on an important angle like that, it can attract people. Like, my mother has her north node conjunct the 7th house cusp, the descendant. And, she's never been short of a healthy, mostly healthy relationship. And when you're trying to interpret what the north node means, you're going to be looking at the house that it's in, and then, of course, the planets that are in play, the different aspects that are being made. You look at the chart, you look at where the north node's at, and you look at the different planets and what little lines are being drawn to those points. Whether they're, nice blue lines, sextiles and trines, or whether they're conjunctions, or there's a planet sitting right on top of that point, or squares. And it's impossible for you to have an opposition to the... Anyway, if you know a little bit about astrology, you'll understand it's impossible to have an opposition to a north or south node, but either way. Now, know that if you have a planet that is square the north node, it's also going to be square the south node, because it's 90 degrees away from one of the points, which means it's automatically going to be 90 degrees away from the other. That's just how the math works in 360-degree circle. So, those are going to be the most challenging. Like somebody who has, let's say, Pluto forming an exact square to the north and south node. Pluto is very much about karma as well. And it is related to deep psychological issues related to fears of abandonment and issues of control and power, both within themselves and then of the world around them and their possessions. So having like a Pluto in square to the north and south node, their sense of controlling themselves and dealing with their own past wounds and psychological bullshit prevents them, or makes it extremely difficult for them to move towards or even away from their south node. They're kind of stuck in a karmic limbo until they can really develop enough honesty with themselves to figure out what the hell is going on. Having Mars square to the north or south node can make somebody almost impulsively working against their own karma. Their sense of independence forces them to move away from any situation that could either make them feel healthy or progressive in their life. See, like, the soul is consciously going to want to move towards and simultaneously away from its soul growth, because it wants to go back to what's most comfortable. The south node is so much about what we subconsciously know about who we used to be, that part of us is always going to want to go back to the south node. Let's look at mine, for example. My north node is in Capricorn at 9 degrees in the 8th house, conjunct the part of Fortune, Uranus, and Neptune. So I've got a shitload of very, very powerful karmic planets sitting right on top of the north node, and there's nothing squaring the axis. There's nothing sitting on top of the south node. So the way my chart is set up, that I'm literally getting sent hurtling towards that path. But because the 8th house is such an intense life or death struggle type house, it's going to... I tend to have to realize my soul, my path to grow through tremendous internal anguish, life and death scenarios, crisis. So you look at the house and the sign that it's in, and it gives you an idea of what you're trying to go towards. So Capricorn's all about assuming responsibility. It's about learning to take life as it comes and accept your circumstances and work through them. And then the 8th house is all about life and death struggle, diving to the depths of your psychological mechanisms, learning to cut away what's not needed so that further growth can be achieved. South Node, Cancer, 2nd house. I mean, I guess in my past life, I was probably like a little whiny bitch who was probably catered to by his family, and or catered to by my family. And I sort of learned to be dependent upon things that were, just handed to me, and am accustomed to just sort of like caving into my own emotional responses. But the whole lesson of my life is to learn to move away from that so that I can, assume authority and assume responsibility in situations that would make other people just tremble. For instance, if somebody has their North Node in the 7th house, they spent their last life with their, the South Node in the 1st house, always doing for themselves and not taking any shit from anybody and not working with anybody and learning to, just trust themselves. And this life, they have to figure out how to work with others and how to form partnerships, how to cooperate and take their ego and put it on the back burner a little bit so that they can do something better for themselves and for the people around them. So, I mean, I will have a series where I go over all the different houses and the nodes in those different houses so that I can explain them more in depth, but for the sake of time, I'm going to have to cut it short. But the nodal axis is something that's very, very worthwhile to study. It can give you a lot of insight into who you need to be and the challenges that you're going to have to face to get to who you need to be. And, the North Node is subconscious. That's why we wake up in the morning. Why do we wake up in the morning? We wake up in the morning because there's something better out there for us. Whether it's love, whether it's a better career, whether it's more freedom, whether it's more depth of experience. It's something that it drives us all, whether we know it or not. We're all searching for that North Node. We're all searching for it. And the cool thing about astrology is it puts a couple tools in your hand to help you understand your path better and put you in the right direction towards growth. So I hope this was helpful. I do offer consultations. Just feel free to get a hold of me in some fashion. I do deal with clients through my personal Facebook profile, but either way, until next time, guys.